This is the Kingdom of Kush, the most powerful ancient African empire you've never heard of. For over 1,400 years, Nubia's warrior kings and queens ruled from the Nile Valley, conquered Egypt as the 25th dynasty, and became the legendary Black Pharaohs. This is the story of ancient Sudan, the Kushite civilization, and the African kingdom that history tried to forget. While ancient Egypt built pyramids at Giza, a powerful civilization was rising to the south, along the same Nile River that gave Egypt life. This was Kush, also known as Nubia, located in what is now northern Sudan. For centuries, historians treated Kush as Egypt's neighbor, its rival, or its colony. But the truth is far more remarkable. Kush wasn't just influenced by Egypt, it conquered Egypt. It wasn't just a regional power, it defeated the Roman Empire. And it wasn't just a footnote in history, it was one of Africa's greatest civilizations. So why don't we learn about Kush in school? Why are there over 200 pyramids in Sudan? Yet most people think pyramids only exist in Egypt. And how did an African kingdom rule as pharaohs of Egypt itself? This is the story the textbooks left out. Kush's story begins over 4,500 years ago, around 2500 BCE, with the Kerma culture, one of the earliest complex societies in Africa. While Egypt was building the Old Kingdom pyramids, Kush was already a major power, controlling trade routes between Central Africa and the Mediterranean. Gold, ivory, ebony, incense, exotic animals. Kush controlled the resources Egypt desperately wanted.
The lion is the heart of this deal. The gold is weighed. Do you accept?
This made them wealthy, powerful, and a target. Around 1500 BCE, Egypt's New Kingdom pharaohs invaded and colonized Kush for nearly 500 years. Egyptian temples were built. Egyptian gods were worshipped. Egyptian culture was imposed. But here's what's fascinating. Kush didn't just absorb Egyptian culture. They selectively adapted it. They took what served them, the writing system, the religious symbols, the architectural styles, and fused it with their own Nubian identity. This would become Kush's superpower, the ability to learn from empires without losing themselves. By 750 BCE, Egypt was weak. Civil war, political fragmentation, foreign invasions. The once mighty empire was collapsing. And from the south came King Meroë of Kush.
Warriors of Kush! The sun god rises with us! Must not to wait for us to wait for us!
Meroë didn't see himself as an invader. He saw himself as a restorer, a devout follower of the god Amun. He believed it was his divine duty to reunite Egypt under true pharaonic rule. In 747 BCE, Meroë marched north with his army. But this wasn't a foreign conquest. This was a Kushite king claiming his birthright. Within years, Meroë controlled all of Egypt. He established the 25th dynasty, the Kushite dynasty. For nearly 100 years, Black Pharaohs from Nubia ruled the entire Nile Valley, from the Mediterranean to modern-day Sudan. These weren't puppet rulers. Pharaohs like Meroë, Shabaka, and Taharqa built temples, restored monuments, expanded trade, and presided over a cultural renaissance. They saw themselves as the true heirs of Egyptian civilization, perhaps even more Egyptian than the Egyptians themselves. But their reign would not last forever. In 671 BCE, a new threat emerged from the northeast, the Assyrian Empire. With iron weapons, chariots, and brutal military tactics, the Assyrians were the superpower of their age. They invaded Egypt. The Kushite pharaohs fought back.
For Ashur the king! For the glory of Ashur! For Kush, drive them back! Not while I stand there! The Pharaoh fight!
But after decades of warfare, the 25th dynasty was defeated. By 656 BCE, Kush was driven out of Egypt, forced to retreat south to their homeland.
We have returned to the womb of our homeland. Give me strength to lead my people.
This could have been the end of Kush, but instead, it was a transformation. Around 590 BCE, the Kushite capital moved from Napata, close to the Egyptian border, further south to Meroë, deep in the African interior. This wasn't a retreat, it was a strategic repositioning. At Meroë, Kush entered its golden age. Free from constant Egyptian and Assyrian pressure, they developed something remarkable, a distinctly African civilization that blended Nubian, Egyptian, and indigenous African cultures. They created their own writing system, Meroitic script, still not fully deciphered today. They became masters of ironworking, producing weapons and tools on an industrial scale. They built over 200 pyramids, more than Egypt itself, and they controlled trade routes connecting Africa's interior to the Red Sea and beyond. This was Kush at its peak, independent, innovative, and unmistakably African. By 25 BCE, the Mediterranean world had a new superpower, Rome. Egypt had fallen to Julius Caesar and later
Kush
Augustus.
will pay tribute.
The entire ancient
Caesar,
world
your
seemed
decree.
to bow to Roman legions, except Kush. When Rome demanded tribute from Kush, the response was unexpected.
Kush does not
Led
kneel.
by their warrior queen, Amanirenas, known as the Candace, Kush didn't negotiate. They fought. Kushite forces raided Roman Egypt, capturing statues of Augustus and taking the bronze head of the emperor himself. They buried it beneath the steps of a temple, a deliberate act of defiance. Rome sent an army to crush Kush. What happened next shocked the empire. I'll tell you the full story in the next video, because the war between Kush and Rome reveals something extraordinary. An African kingdom that didn't just resist the world's greatest empire, it forced Rome to negotiate peace on Kushite terms. But before we get to that war, you need to understand what made Kush so formidable. So, why does Kush matter? First, because it challenges everything we think we know about ancient power. We're taught that civilization flowed from Europe and the Middle East. But Kush proves that Africa was home to sophisticated empires that rivaled Rome, Egypt, and Persia. Second, because Kush shows us the power of cultural sovereignty. They absorbed Egyptian influence without losing their Nubian identity. They adapted to empires without being consumed by them. They selective borrowed, innovated, and remained unmistakably themselves. Third, because Kush was erased from mainstream history, not because it wasn't important, but because it didn't fit the narrative. For centuries, European historians couldn't reconcile the idea of a powerful black African civilization. So they minimized it, ignored it, or attributed Kush's achievements to Egyptian or Middle Eastern influence. But the evidence is undeniable. The pyramids still stand in Sudan. The Meroitic script is still being deciphered. The artifacts still tell the story. Kush was real. Kush was powerful. And Kush was African. The question isn't whether Kush mattered. The question is, why weren't we taught about it? But the story of Kush gets even more incredible. Because next, we're diving into the war that shocked the ancient world. Kush versus Rome. You'll meet Queen Amanirenas, the one-eyed warrior queen who led 30,000 troops against the Roman Empire. You'll discover how Kush captured the emperor's own statue and buried it as a trophy. And you'll learn how an African kingdom forced Rome to sue for peace. That video is right here. Click it now. And if you want more hidden histories of Africa's greatest empires, subscribe and hit the bell. Because this is just the beginning. This is the world explained, and the past is stranger than you've been told.